was. What was it like in the very beginning for you when this all started happening and, you know, Mike Jr. and General Flynn were?
Yeah, so General Flynn got involved with the Trump campaign around, full-time around probably June of 2016, and you know, he had been doing a lot of consulting with other candidates who were looking for his advice, particularly on foreign affairs, the Middle East, and then, you know, threw his hat in the ring with the Trump organization, and then, of course, he was, you know, on the campaign pretty much full-time. So we were very excited about that. I think, like a lot of people, you know, we didn't quite know at that time. But
Chandler Crump is here.
The candidate Trump was going to win the election.
My son-in-law.
So, you know, and then so when he won, I actually had several conversations with General Flynn prior to that, and he really didn't have a lot of interest in going back into working in the government. He had retired from the military a couple years earlier. He said, look, the only thing I want, more than anything, is to ensure that Hillary Clinton does not become president of the United States. I'll do anything. So then he gets chosen a few days after the election. He gets chosen as National Security Advisor, and of course I wasn't surprised because I know how close he was with the president, and so we were, of course, all very proud. I mean, we're a military family. I also have 7 or 8 people in our immediate family that are still in uniform. I have another brother who's a 3-star general. My father was retired military. So, you know, this was something, you know, serving the nation was really important, and so we were proud of Mike's. And you know, we knew he was going to be really busy. I saw him during the transition once when I walked into his house, and he said to me, because I speak Spanish and I spent a lot of time in Latin America, he said he wanted to be the ambassador to Spain. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I got to get all these positions filled and so forth. So, you know, he was in the midst of it. When the articles about him being a Russian, you know, having secret talks with the Russians and stuff were coming out, I knew right away something was wrong.
Right.
Something was drastically wrong. I started to get phone calls from journalists from Washington Post, Guardian, yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Washington Post, Guardian, you name it, all left, and go to tell us about your brother, you know, why was your brother, and, you know, sitting next to Putin and all this kind of nonsense coming out. And so I got a sense that something was up. And then, you know, the leak came, the big leak, the David Ignatius leak, and then I knew we were heading into some trouble.
I don't think so, ATC.
I didn't really see it didn't look like they were going to rally around the general. I was quite worried about that.
Yeah.
And I think that the day that he resigned, and he resigned on his own, went into the president and said, I don't want to be distracted.
Just listen.
You know, this doesn't seem to go away. Maybe by me going away, leaving the administration, this nonsense about Russia will go away. And that's when all hell broke loose.
I do. And so, you know, for years now we're sitting, in case you guys don't know, we're sitting in front of a judge who refuses to accept the government's withdrawal of the charges against an innocent man. It's never happened with my stuff, by the way. It's never happened before in the history, I don't think, of the judicial system in the United States. This is the first time thing, and we've gotten evidence upon evidence upon evidence that's cleared him of all wrongdoing. He knew at the time, right, that he didn't lie to the FBI when they ambushed him. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so there was a couple of unfortunate things that happened. Number one was the choice of our first lawyers. That was a bad choice, but people make, you know, decisions in haste that aren't always good, especially when there's a lot of pressure on you. There's a lot of sinister things in this case, but the most sinister thing with this case was the way the special counsel under Andrew Weissman manipulated General Flynn into the plea deal.
Yeah.
2 things that were really bad at. Number one, they bled him dry financially, and that's why we opened the legal defense fund against his wishes, because he didn't want to look like he was pandering. I went to him with my sister Barbara, and I said, Michael, this is going to cost, it's already costing, up to that point before we opened it, it cost us $1.5 million before we even opened it. That was 3.5 years ago. Yeah. So I said, you're going to bleed me dry. And sure enough, they bled him dry. And so that was happening. The second thing, of course, is Rod Rosenstein allowed for the special counsel to go after Michael Jr., my nephew, his son, who was his business partner. And so they were very much pressuring General Flynn in the proffer sessions around indicting his son, who had just had a baby, and there was no real reason for indictment, but again, you're up against the U.S. government, and you have no funds, and much of the texting back and forth between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of information that had not been disclosed to General Flynn prior to that plea deal. A lot of people ask, why did he plead guilty? Well, you know, tell me why. And now we see what's kind of disgusting, actually, is, and it really kind of shows where the Department of Justice is. And, you know, hopefully the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, will do a better job. I think it remains to be seen, but the amount of exculpatory information.
Yeah.
That is flowing out of there now. That was withheld from him prior to that plea deal, which was the worst day in his life.
I know.
In our lives.
He wrote about that. He actually entered a filing into the case in his words of how he felt about all of this toward what we thought would be end. But two things exculpatory that would have helped him go. First of all, we got the declassified scope memo where we learned that Ron Rosenstein was allowing the special counsel to go after General Flynn on the Logan Act.
Something that had never been prosecuted ever in American history. Something completely unconstitutional. It's perfectly legal for an incoming national security advisor to have conversations with as many foreign diplomats or foreign officials as possible, because he's got to get to know them and start building relationships with them, especially the Russians and the Chinese.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you look at the transcripts of the calls that he had with Kislyak, you can see in those transcripts he never mentioned the sanctions. He mentioned the expulsion of the diplomats, which was sort of a violent act by the Obama administration for this specific purpose. So we're trying to conduct diplomacy, and General Flynn says, don't react in a more, you know, in a greater fashion than,
more aggressive way.
Right, than you need to. You know you have to respond. So
He said do a tit for tat response, and it had nothing to do with, like you said, with sanctions and that, but unfortunately the plea deal was about, it had to do with the expulsions. And again, Obama administration doing this, what, 2 weeks before they're on their way out, based on, as we know now, a lot of nonsense information in the dossier and all of that.
And with Mike Flynn Jr., you know, the FARA violations are a very complicated part of this case that not a lot of people understand, and they're purposefully, complicated. But Peter Strzok himself, we've now learned, wrote down that General Flynn complied completely with all FARA, you know, what he had to do. He complied, and they knew it. There was nothing wrong with FARA. And they went after his business partner and wanted him to testify. And the judge in that case actually ended up overturning the conviction. That's how weak of a case it was.
And overturned the conviction and threw the case out entirely.
Right.
Because again, it was fabricated. It was a fabricated crime. This is all amount of fabrication. You mentioned earlier kind of where we are now.
Yeah.
So as we know, the Department of Justice dropped the charges against General Flynn with prejudice on May the 7th. What's today's date? Today's October 9th. Okay, we've spent, just from that period of time, we've been back and forth in the court 4 or 5 times since May the 7th. What should have happened that day is that the charges should have been dropped and the judge should have signed the dismissal. Well, what we're seeing now, and again, a lot of people come to us often and say, oh, we're so sorry for you, we're so sorry for you. Don't be sorry for the Flynn family. We're going to fight this.
Yeah.
Be sorry for yourselves. Be sorry for America.
Yep.
Be sorry that the justice system, that the judiciary in this country is so broken and so corrupt that a judge can allow another former judge to act as prosecutors when the defense and the prosecutor are acting as the defense. It's so upside down, this situation. And I think that if you're paying attention, you're seeing just how sick and corrupt the judiciary is in this country under people like Emmett Sullivan, particularly in the Washington, D.C. District Court, which is supposed to be, you know, the one that tries most of the cases around federal government related issues. It's really bad, you know, but we're going to continue to fight it. And, you know, thank God for Sidney Powell. We call her the guardian angel.
She's a pit bull. Guys, search Sidney Powell. She's a pit bull.
We have 9 siblings in my family. I'm the youngest. Michael's the middle child. Sidney is now our 10th.
Aww.
So it's great, and we're happy that we have her. But, you know, that's kind of where the situation is right now.
So I have a few
You got it,
questions
Brett.
for you, on what your thoughts
I feel like
are.
Marco Rubio.
a dork, right? So I listen to all these hearings, and I listened to the whole hearing just recently that happened. It was that biased friend of the court, Judge Gleason. Does anybody know who he is? Okay, so he had written that op-ed. When you found out that he had been appointed as an amicus, what did you think?
Well, that's nice. Sidney Powell, as soon as she heard that, the first amicus that came in was actually a bunch of former Nixon lawyers,
Right.
former lawyers that had gone after Watergate. And then comes Gleason. Well, Sidney blew her mind, blew her top. I was in the room, and I mean, Sidney is a sweet and very polite and proper lady, but let me tell you something, she can swear like a sailor, especially when she gets pissed off. But she said, I'm going to mandamus his ass.
And she did.
First thing she said, God damn it, I'm going to mandamus his ass. She shoots out that mandamus, which had some success, because the first panel of the appeals court said, okay, we're going to uphold this mandamus. And then, of course, Sullivan knew that he had everybody else on the appeals court in his back pocket. He calls an en banc. I mean, you must have to have a legal degree to deal with all that.
Yeah.
He calls an en banc, and the en banc says, oh, let's give it back to Sullivan. So this amicus judge,
Is he free?
we knew he was in the Southern District of New York, but Sidney knew also.
I'm gonna go talk to Joey for a second. All right, but just listen.
Okay, they go on family vacations together. They work together in the Southern District of New York. So it's no secret that Andrew Weissman is absolutely behind this because, of course, this case being thrown out destroys the special counsel once and for all. And so we're up against serious evil here with this. We are up against serious evil. Make no mistake about it. And and we know that. And so, we're just going to keep fighting.
So you are fighting.
Oh, absolutely.
What blew my mind about that was that I'm listening to him, and so the government wants to dismiss these charges with prejudice, which means they can't bring them back again on a whim one day when General Flynn's enjoying his life. Just bring the same thing back on him again. And the judge in the case was actually fighting to be able to dismiss them with prejudice. Without prejudice.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Without prejudice, meaning that in his words, he said another attorney general one day may want to come back and charge him again. This is the judge.
He has no standing whatsoever to say that kind of thing. But more importantly, having a judge that's that politically biased is totally destructive to the rule of law in this country. I think it's very important people understand. Again, I've almost gotten a legal degree going through this with our families. When the Department of Justice dropped the charges, that's called a rule for you lawyers out there, you probably know this. That's a Rule 48A motion to dismiss with prejudice in this case. What that means is the game is over. There's not going to be any more charges to this person. The game is over. Not 100% of the times in American history, that dismissal, when both parties agree to that, immediately it's over. This is the first time in American history, that a Rule 48A motion has not been signed and signed off on quickly. It is now at the point of a constitutional crisis, because now you have the judiciary usurping the power of the executive branch. The executive branch is the only branch of the government that can prosecute somebody. The judiciary cannot prosecute. So we are at a constitutional crisis.
Yeah, the
We didn't
judiciary.
expect to be here, but here we are.
I mean, it's huge, and it'll probably end up in front of the Supreme Court, I expect, if things don't go, with dispatch, as they say.
Yeah. By the way, that hearing was, almost 10 days ago, now, 12 days ago.
Yeah, and there was just a filing yesterday, so, it alerts me on my phone because it's just so bad. So, I was gonna
Hey, guys,
say,
hold on.
I forget what I was gonna say, actually, we'll just.
You see who's behind me?
Um,
Uncle Tom. You guys know him.
Well, okay, so we just got a whole bunch more exploratory information over the past couple days. Some really amazing stuff from James Baker, who literally, what did he say? Tell everybody what
I
James
don't remember you guys. I've been here playing
Me
golf
too.
all day yesterday. By the way, there was more cheating in that golf game yesterday.
So James Baker actually wrote that it would be really impossible to prosecute on a Logan Act violation. I can remember my phone number, but this is the general counsel of the FBI saying there's no case. And it's an uphill battle we were to try to do anything, just in their own words, in addition to Bill Priestap, who was the director of counterintelligence in the FBI, saying, what's the goal here? Is it to get them to lie so we can prosecute them or get them fired? In their handwriting. And then you see them talking, and it's almost like we're in a different universe. How have you been fighting back against the disinformation that's out there?
Well, that's hard. I think one of the things, there's a couple of things that are really moving our spirits through all of this.
Thank you, Michelle.
One is, of course, all of our friends and followers on social media, and honestly, millions of letters and of support that General Flynn has gotten. He's definitely going to be writing, one of the books that he'll write is what he's going to call Letters from America. And those are all the letters of support he received from thousands, hundreds of thousands of patriots. And a small donation, we didn't receive donations from wealthy, conservative people. In fact, we got nothing from them. It doesn't mean that they're not supportive, but the support we got was $20 from people who take $20 a week, or sorry, a month, out of their Social Security and send it to us. I mean, it's so humbling to go through this.
Yeah.
We didn't expect it.
Yep, 5%ers.
We never, ever have survived this long without that support. And so, that's something that opened our eyes quite a bit to who your real friends are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you go through something like this, when you're maligned publicly like this, especially a three-star general, and the people that are supporting him are his former subordinates, not his peers, okay? His subordinates, sergeant majors, captains, lieutenants, people who served under him for years. Those are been the real support. Because the rest of them don't want to get into the political fray because they're afraid. I think we have a serious problem with that, where powerful people are not speaking out about the truth in this country. And I think that is a real problem.
I wonder if we can do this. I don't know if we can. Want to take a couple questions? You said you want to say something.
Sure, I'd be happy to take it.
I don't know if we have a microphone. Raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Does anyone have? You.
Just stand up.
Scream it.
Well, first of all, I hope it does not happen. I hope the judge does what he's supposed to do, but I think we've seen up to this point, he's probably not. As soon as he puts out his next opinion, which should be imminent, maybe this week, next week, we'll have to make that decision. If it goes where he's, for example, he could go to sentencing. I'm going to go to sentencing, okay, for a crime that doesn't exist. But I wouldn't put that past him. I think Sidney would immediately file to the Supreme Court as soon as the motion comes in. So that can happen very shortly here in the next couple of weeks. God willing, the Supreme Court hears it.
And, Judge Sullivan wanted to actually charge General Flynn with a crime on his own. He wanted to charge General Flynn with perjury.
Yeah. He wanted to charge him with perjury and contempt.
Yes.
For having pled guilty in the court. And it was very obvious to us in the last hearing that he barely read any of Sidney's motions, particularly her motion to withdraw the plea, which she filed sometime around March or February.
Yeah, it was early.
So it was obvious he has no intention of letting General Flynn go unless he has a gun, a figurative gun to his head, either by the appeals court, which we've seen how they acted, or the Supreme Court. And I think if it goes to the Supreme Court, it'll be, even if Ruth Gator, even if Archie, if she was still there, it would be 9-0.
Yeah.
There was a similar case to this back just this past year in March that got thrown out immediately from the Supreme Court. So it has to go that far. We'll take it that far. It'll happen hopefully before the election.
When I talk to you people about double agents, you think about General Flynn, and you think about what his brother just said. Okay, none of his friends went to bat for him. None of his supervisors or his peers went to bat for him. And as a matter of fact, the big donors from the Conservative Party didn't give shit. So you remember that.
That's a great point. I think more so than the pawn, probably the center is of the coup. That's okay. What I mean by that is, I don't know if anybody's read the book Permanent Coup by Lee Smith. If you haven't read it, I suggest.
All right, listen, guys.
Yep.
I don't want to talk about the turnout right now.
General Flynn,
But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find a seat in the front because I don't want to sit in the back. Media is supposed to sit in the back, but nobody's looking at these badges. Okay.
Was the main reason why they went after him as quickly as they did. If you don't forget, when Obama met with Trump the first time during the transition, he told him to be afraid of two people, Kim Jong-un and Michael Flynn. I mean, that says a lot right there. So General Flynn was really the centerpiece of the coup attempt, because if they could take somebody down as close to the president as General Flynn, then they could take the presidency down. And they were very clever in the ways in which they manipulated the press. Actually, not manipulated. They worked closely with.
Yeah. Right.
They worked closely with the press, coordinating a constant intention to get the president
I'm telling you,
out.
Jenny.
25th Amendment, Ukraine.
We got
special
double
counsel,
agents.
You name it, they went after us. President Trump said it the other night during the debate. He said, "This has been."
And Republicans are scared as shit. They're weak as water. If they weren't, this entire room would be filled right now.
Since the election in 2016, it started with targeting General Flynn to get after Trump. Which, by the way, the FBI agent
You know who calls it prostitutes? Karen Kennedy. I love that. Prostitutes. They hoes.
said this was all about getting Trump. Getting Flynn was getting Trump. It was from the beginning.
Yep.
To the point where they actually went out and bought personal liability insurance for themselves. They talked about it to protect themselves because they knew they were doing things wrong.
Well, we all know this now. I mean, we all know this now. It's not, you're never going to read it on CNN or New York Times. It's amazing to me when we were having real serious problems 3 or 4 years ago. I would get calls from, you name the journalists, and I would get calls from.
Yep. At all costs, get Trump, no matter what, right or wrong, legal or illegal. Assholes.
They're never going to call. They don't want to push this narrative. So, yes, and I think Biden and Obama were behind it. Of course they're behind it.
Well, Biden suggested the Logan Act.
Exactly.
What do you think about council manipulation? Talking about media manipulation, and you were a target of that in one sense. They went right after you, and then as soon as your brother was clear, they left off of that. Have you tied anything into the Council on Foreign Relations, which basically is a Manhattan think tank that manipulates Wall Street and where the money's going to be spent in wars?
Well, I think the Council of Foreign Relations is a great example of kind of a permanent political class that we have in this country, okay, that has ruled over particularly our foreign policy, which has been to promote endless wars, which, of course, and to also promote the idea that we have to continue to pay for everybody else's armies in our so-called allies. And thank God President Trump and General Flynn come in and they say, we're not going to do this anymore. We're gonna relook at everything here. We're gonna make NATO pay its fair share. We're gonna clean up the mess in the Middle East quickly and get out of there.
Amen. Yes, our president did that.
It's exactly what President Trump has done, and again, flies in the face of the neocons on the right, or I don't even want to say the right, the neocons and the left, who just want to continuously promote this idea of war. Joe Biden is a great example of that. I think, President Trump and General Flynn were a wrecking ball to organizations.
Exactly.
A wrecking ball to the political class
Exactly.
that has ruled over us for a long time now, probably since the Second World War. So.
And you were Democrats.
Yes, we were Democrats, amazingly enough. Yeah, we were Democrats. So was Trump. Yeah, in fact, when General Flynn was chosen on the short list for VP, he hadn't changed his party affiliation. He was still affiliated. I changed mine 10 years ago when I moved to California. I lived in California for 20 years. After 10 years of being in California, I said, this is nuts. Democratic Party.
Yep.
Democratic Party that most of us grew
Yep.
up, some of us grew up in, is nothing.
It's
close
not
to
the
what it is
same.
today. Not even close. I mean, show me a pro-life Democrat. I had a great conversation recently talking about pro-life Democrat with the former mayor of Boston, Raymond Flynn. And everybody remember Ray Flynn for one. And, you know, we were lamenting the demise of the Democratic Party taken over by Marxists. That's where we're at right now. So.
I have a question over here.
Hi. Hi there.
So many friends of Flynn and donators and things like that on social media has been, you know, pardon him, pardon him.
Yeah.
And just address, I know Sidney Powell recently asked the president not to pardon. So
Right.
could you expand on that?
Yeah, well, the charges have been dismissed. The case is over. You know, I mean, the judiciary system should be working. It's not working. So we're going to have to continue to fight it. I will say that, you know, no, I'm not going to say that. We're going to continue to fight it, period, end of story. That's a totally last-ditch effort, if only if needed in an emergency. And I think it would probably come our way, but, you know, that's off the table for the moment.
Yeah, you don't want to pardon for something you're not guilty of.
Right, right.
Closing remarks, you've got 2 minutes. So we'll do closing
Oh,
remarks.
thanks for watching.
That's my job.
No, listen, again, I want to thank AmpFest for allowing me to speak here today. I want to thank the really hundreds of those that are watching on social media or on YouTube or whatever. Thank you all very much. We as a family love this country. We've got many members in our family fought for this country. We believe in it. We believe in American exceptionalism. And
Amen.
We absolutely believe and need not only for Donald J. Trump to be president again here in a few weeks, but we need to win the House and we need to win the Senate.
Amen.
Anything has shown us anything to our family, how important it is for us to have power in this country. And I mean that from the standpoint in a good way, not a bad way. If we let these people take over this country, if we let this Marxist movement take over this country, everything that our parents and grandparents and forefathers and mothers fought for is done. And it can happen very, very quickly. We need
Damn
to
straight.
So we need to keep fighting. Our family's going to keep fighting. And all of you and all of your families have to keep fighting. Thanks very much.
That's right, Brett. Amen.